Hi, welcome to DM Talk. I'm Henry Knight, the DM for Playerole. This is a channel for role playing. And tonight we're talking about game mechanics, multiple things on the Dungeons and Dragons realm. But tonight specifically, we have a couple topics, and I think these are fun topics, nothing negative or anything like that. Tonight we're going to talk about the loot. We're going to talk about loot, and we're going to talk about magic. It's all part of loot, magic items and stuff like that. Some fun stuff. But anyways, before we get into what we're going to talk about, tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Central, we have a big game, part 3 of the End of the Line Returns. I've mentioned this before, but I will remind people that End of the Line Returns is part of, it's the same group or the players with different characters, and it's a side story, sort of like when you play a video game, they go on different quests and they meet new people, and then you have a different cast, almost something like that. Well, those folks have their own story called End of the Line, and this is the returns, kind of like chapter 2 of their story, and tomorrow is going to be the ending of it. So join us tomorrow at 8 p.m. to find out what happens to the cast of the End of the Line. Anyways, let's talk about loot. How do you guys do loot? Use loot in your campaigns? Do you just sprinkle the loot about? If you have a map per se, right? You have a map and you know what you're going to put all your creatures. Do you sprinkle the loot all around, or do you just go randomly? How do you use loot in your games? That's important because the player characters have to buy something. They got to buy a sword. They have to buy a weapon. How do they get their money? I mean, it all depends on how you use it. And I'm going to get some water. It all depends on how you use it, because loot, every DM is different. You kill a creature and it's just like a video game. They sprinkle gold on the ground, or they just die, disappear, and gold is right there, or silver, copper pieces, or whatnot. Or me and my friend were talking about this at work. So you have you kill a creature. Let's say you're fighting a displacer beast, and you kill the displacer beast. And how do you get that gold? Well, maybe down the road there's a overturned carriage and there's a loot. That's how I would do it. I urge people to do it that way. They don't have to do it that way. Every DM has their own specific flavor on what they like or don't like for loot. But gotta remember, loot in general is important, because player characters, they have to buy items. They have to buy that sword, or they go into town and they need provisions. How are they going to get from one adventure to another? Or how are they going to get from town all of a sudden to somewhere else without any currency? Loot is important. Loot is just a part of the story, just as important to the story as anything else. You need gold, you need silver, you need all that. You can say, oh, well, my world doesn't have currency. Okay, well, what does it have? It's, as a DM, you don't have to, but loot's important. So you're going to have to, here I go, you're going to have to. I'm not saying you have to. You can do what you want. As a DM, you could run it the way you want it. Maybe your currency is there is no currency. Maybe they do more trading, clothes, weapons, stuff like that. Nothing wrong with that. That's okay, but you need some form of currency. To me, as DM, I like currency. I like the gold. I like to go into a tavern. You go into a tavern and you ask for your room. Um, at above the tavern, there's an inn. You go to the inn and you go to your room, or you ask for the ale. How are you going to pay for it? Well, okay, here, give me your dagger. Give me your dagger, and I will give you ale. Well, no. Currency, there is gold, there's silver, there's platinum, and there's other means that you can use your loot for. So loot is very important. Loot is also a device for magic. There's spells where you use gold, you use maybe a diamond that's worth 500 gold pieces. You squeeze it or you rub it to the point where you use it part of the magic. So loot is very important. It's a device that is part of the world of Dungeons and Dragons and fantasy world, altogether. You got to have that loot in there. It's not fun when you have a campaign and there's an overturned carriage and you have a party of 7 and you go to help the folks in that carriage, and all of a sudden you see, dead bodies, and oh yeah, the goblins looted the carriage, but they only found paintings, which they torn apart, and clothes. They didn't find anything of value. Maybe weapons, yeah, but it's not much. Jewelry, it's all part of loot. Items, that stuff. Diamonds, it's all loot. You gotta have something to loot. Maybe that magic items. We're gonna go to magic items a little later, but I like talking about this because as a DM and as a player, tell me in the comments, how do you guys deal with loot as a DM or a player? Do you like having currency? Do you like, looting a party, a group of people in town or out of town? Do you like playing those nasty, feisty characters that go into one room to another? It all depends. All depends on what you like in your games and how you run your campaign. The major aspect of running a game is, this magical property. Here's an example. The artificer in my game, in my campaign, wanted to summon a homunculus, but to summon a homunculus, you need certain things, right? You need like a diamond, or I believe it's something worth 500 gold pieces. So he didn't have that, so you need something like that to summon that homunculus. And if you don't have those components, you're not going to do it. Now, some DMs might be, who cares about the components? It's cool just to summon, make it fast and flashy. Yeah, that's cool. I mean, it's fun, right? The main thing about role-playing is fun. And when you're a DM, you can run it how you see fit, but understand that you have to have the communication with the party. There was a forum, and I love reading these D&D forums because they're great, because you have DMs and people asking for advice on different things. And they were talking about and this is where I got the idea of loot. This player in this DM's party who was constantly taking the loot from everybody. But all the other players were cool. And he had a party of 6. And all 5 of them were like, all right, cool. But the number 6 was taking everything. The magic items, just everything. Is that cool? No, it's not. So that's why you have to communicate with your players. The more communication you have, the better it'll be, because you don't want to just, singleize somebody. Hey, your player, come here. Don't do that. You're being shitty. You're really being shitty, and you don't want to call out your player, one of your players. Then all of a sudden, they'll turn around and say, well, Henry, I didn't want to do that. I just got into it. I was role playing so much that I looted, and they looted, and I took everything because I'm the rogue. Well, okay, but share it. You're in a party. Look, we know that in the party you have different alignments if you decide to play with alignments, or you have a group of people. But everything is team based. When it's team based, when it's a group of people work together, the party, it's great. It's okay to have it's okay to do certain things. Like one of my friends, and he DM'd not Dungeons and Dragons and OSR, and one of the guys in the party, he was being shifty. I was a paladin, so I gave my gold that I had, half of my gold, to imagine this scenario, overturned carriage. We helped people. He wasn't very nice. He wasn't lawful good or anything like that. He was neutral. He was a little bit on the feisty side, and that's totally cool. So when you have a party and one of those characters is a little feisty and you're lawful, because I like playing paladin, so I was a paladin, so I went ahead and gave some of my gold to the people that we helped, and they were poor, yada yada yada. So I gave them the gold. I'm a paladin. That's what I do. So Richie, I want to call him out. In the game, he wasn't so nice. So he took the money I gave. I didn't see it, and we turned around, we left. But he made a stealth roll and went around the carriage and kind of took the money and stuff from them. Now, that's what I mean about role playing. When you have a group and they do something like that and it's out of fun, there's nothing wrong with that. When you do things out of fun, it's great. When it's fun, it really intensifies the scene. It makes things it makes things wonderful for the game. People are happy. People are not mad. Oh, you're being a jerk. You looted. You took what we had. Here's another scenario. At the end of the bridge, there's the castle's behind you. You go to the forest and you see, a band of orcs. You defeat the orcs, and just beyond the orcs, you find that they had a campfire and in the forest. So there was a little bit of a clearing, and they had a campfire. So you go ahead and loot the area. You take everything. So you take everything, and then you realize, oh man, one of the guys, number 6, and this is a forum that I read, one of the guys as people were grabbing the loot, this guy was a rogue and just taking stuff, the major stuff. So the items that he liked, he took. And the DM was upset because he had pre-written the story of the group went into a certain location, and his 6th player, the one that wasn't working with the other players, stole the loot for himself, a majority of it. There was magical items in there, and he took the loot. He said, I'm taking it for myself. And there were certain items that was for the cleric and for the fighter and so forth, but he took it. It doesn't matter. He took it. So and I read this in the forum, how would you do this? Guys, I urge you to really, really look at a session 0. Session 0 is the number one thing. Communication is the number one thing. Get your group together, have a session 0. You're not going to have, it's not perfect. Look, session 0s are not perfect, but they're there to tell the players where you're coming from, and then you're going to get their input. And you're going to say, hey, look, this is what we like playing, yada, yada, yada. Communication is the key. So this forum that I was reading, the DM was mad because player number 6 out of his 6th player was stealing all the items. And he stole all the items, and all of a sudden, the items are gone. And that player was being a jerk. So how do you deal with that? So let's say you had a session 0 and that player is being a jerk. So what you do, don't call him out in the game. I don't like having arguments at the table. What I do is like, hey, let's take a 15-minute break. Take a break, whatever, 30 minutes to eat. Talk to him. Say, hey, look, what's going on? Oh man, I got over. Maybe he was into his role-playing mode and he's a rogue, and maybe he's like, man, I'm just role-playing my character. So say, hey man, you know, it's great that you're role-playing your character, but you're taking other items from other people. I mean, share a little bit. There's nothing wrong with that. Give them, say, hey man, I got something cool going on. I got things are going to happen. It's going to be great. Talk to your player. Say, you know what? Don't steal those items from the other players. You know, it's a team. Talk connected. Hope everybody can see me or hear me. Let me look at my levels here. It looks like okay. Yeah, sometimes it does happen. Get disconnected and reconnected. But either way, I'm back. I don't have any issues with everybody. Okay, I'm back. Anyways, I was saying you communicate with your players, and once you communicate with your players, they're going to have feedback for you. They're going to say, hey man, thanks for that talk. You know, talking with your players away from the table is the number one thing. Don't just say, look, I'm going to call it out in the table. You know what? Even the best DM, doesn't matter. Sometimes it does happen, and you can't stop it. Sometimes a player gets angry. He goes, or the players, what if this scenario? Party of 6, and number 6 decides to take the loot. Again, the next scenario, the same scenario. They're in the forest. They looted the orc encampment. They looted the orcs. They killed the orcs. They got the experience. Everybody got equal experience. But the rogue went in and took a lot of the magical items, gold and silver or whatnot. He has a bag of holding, shoved that all in there. No one even knows that he has the bag of holding because he's the type of guy that likes to hold it from everybody else. So he takes it. And what do you do and how do you deal with that? So let's say the players got mad and they start arguing. And it does happen. So you know what you do? You're like, I'm stopping the game. Stop it right there. And if they argue, they're going to be, well, that's crap. We want to keep playing. Yeah, but you're going to argue. Or stop it, leave the table, or role play it. As they're arguing, I said, guys, make a deck save. What? What's going on? Make a deck save. Make the DC high as hell. A volley of arrows came right at him. The rogue looked up and volley of arrows are coming at him. So what's going on? Are you singling out the rogue? No, you're not. A volley of arrows came to everybody. Came in their direction. The rogue, the paladin, the cleric, whatever classes you have. A volley of arrows. What are you doing? A deck save. They needed 18 or over. Let's say they're level 3s, level 4s, or whatnot. Make that DC high. Get them going. Get them running. Make a scenario that is dangerous enough to bring that party together. Maybe they have, like I said in Creatures of the Realm, the hags. If you like using a hag, hags are great creatures or great characters to have in your game. Hags are amazing. You know, night hags especially. So when you do that, the party, they're dancing around, same scenario. Oh man, their orcs are coming back? Hell yeah. You think the orcs are going to be there, right? They're just going to leave their camp? Oh yeah, there's more. There's more in the distance. You hear a war. You hear a horn in the backdrop. What? They're calling for who? What's going on? Maybe there's an explosion in the background. Make it where they have to run. I want to go scout. Then the rogue's like, oh, shit. Maybe he has a magical item that's cursed. Or something like that. You're not being an ass. You want to bring the party together. Give them a reason to work together. Normally, in my experience, I'm 52 years old. I've been role-playing for a very long time. Normally, when a player acts out like that, it's because they're bored. They want something that will give them energy. So give it to them. Give them the energy that they want. The action. Not everybody in your game are going to be thespians. Not everybody in your game is going to want to role play all the time. As much as I want my guys, even my party that I have, my players, to role play all the time, you got to mix that combat in there. You got to mix that action. It even says that stuff like that in the DM's guide. It says it, you got to mix it up. Not everybody is going to want to role play 100% of the time. I have a buddy of mine, my best friend, George. He's in the game. He doesn't like theater of the mind. Doesn't like it. He tries, but doesn't like theater of the mind. And it's okay not to like theater of the mind. There's nothing wrong with that. I absolutely love role-playing theater of the mind. Miniatures are great. It's the aspects of Dungeons and Dragons that makes it amazing. But remember, I want to check my levels again because the computer buffering is okay. All right, good. Anyways, I was saying not everybody is going to enjoy a night of all role-playing. I had, in one of my episodes, I had a story that was, the whole scenario was a trap. The whole episode was a trap. They had to work together. There wasn't a lot of action. Well, there was action, but there wasn't like an initiative combat. There was just traps, and the whole episode was a trap. It was a risky thing, and I did it, and they liked it. Not everybody liked it, but one guy's like, it was all right. And then the other guy was like, hey, this is cool. But it wasn't what they wanted. So I tried it out. I tested it, and the feedback was good and bad. So those are the things as a DM you have to try out too, is try out different things. Don't be afraid to do that. You know, sometimes we get complacent. Sometimes we're afraid to do things new because you're like, oh, the players are not going to like it. How do you know? Try it out. Try it out. If you have an episode of role-playing, then have something that will bring the party together. But normally, and going back to that D&D forum, the reason why that character, that rogue, that player was acting up is because he was bored or something that he wanted. Maybe in the session 0, the communication wasn't there. Maybe the player didn't like the scenarios the DM was throwing out. Maybe it was too slow. I tell you what, my first game that I ran, first camp, it wasn't a campaign, it was a one-shot. And my one-shot was horrible. I ran a horrible one-shot. And I think it kind of, thinking back, I had the whole legend theme, had a unicorn in the forest, and it was, to me, in my head, it was epic. But the players did not like it. They wanted blood. They wanted combat. They didn't want role play. They didn't want any of that. They wanted like, okay, let's go to battle. That's what they wanted. That's what they wanted. I was devastated because they didn't want that. It's because I had different aspects, and it did not meet their needs. So reading the table is very important as well. Yes, thank you for commenting. Yes, I am. Yes, yes. Yes, thank you for commenting. I am the group's permanent DM. I want to have other DMs to try it out. You know, I had my buddy Alex run his game that he created, Existential Essentials, which you can check out on Drive Through RPG, and check out momodai.com and check out Alex's game, which is very, very good. And he DM'd for us and me and two of the Playerole guys, and we had a blast. But yeah, you know, I am the DM normally for Playerole. Thank you for commenting. But getting back to what I was saying is look, you got to read the table. Read the table. You need to just sit there and say, look, I'm going to run this game. And if you're going to try something new, reading the table is important. And if you know you're not getting any feedback, I'm a DM that's energy DM. So if you have a lot of energy, I'm going to throw a lot of energy. But if the table is humdrum and I'm doing everything and I'm throwing stuff at you and we're having a great story and everybody's like, that's where the problem lies. You got to read the table. Reading the table is very important. That's because certain players want certain things. Not everybody is a combat monger. Not everybody is a role player. Maybe there's a little bit of both. You got to learn to connect and make things flow. The flow of the game is the number one important thing. If you have, I have a couple guys in my party, well, in my group, that is slow. When they do things, they procrastinate. So I have a hourglass. It's small, and once I get it out, go boop. It's a 2-minute hourglass, but it's fast. And when I do that, they're like, "Oh shit!" So they look at D&D Beyond, and they're trying to look and to get things done. But when you're in combat 6 seconds. 6 seconds is one round. So if you're procrastinating your turn and there's 3 people ahead of you, let's go. Get it on, man. You know exactly what to do. Get that sword out, get that magic out, and get going. So when I have the little hourglass and I flip it, you're done. Oh, next. Yeah. You got to put, I'm sorry, I shouldn't say you have to. All depends on who you are as a DM. And if you take your story and you give them what they want, which is a little bit of combat, a little bit of mystery, a little bit of action, a little bit of role playing, a little mixture here and there, sprinkle it. You know, you have a little bit of salt and pepper, put it on your fries, same thing. You got to do that. I know I'm saying you have to, but to me, it's a very important thing to do, because if you don't do that, the players are going to get bored. You don't want players to get bored. You could have one hell of a story, and if your players get bored, you got to remember, you're not writing a book. I love to write. And I know a lot of times I get into my thing, but I have to remember, because even as an experienced DM, I also get complacent. And it happens to everybody. We all do. Don't care who you are, even the professional streamers. Yeah, everybody does, because we're all human. We all make mistakes. And here's the thing. When you make mistakes, it's fun because they call it out. Players call it out, and it's fun. I'm like, oh, Henry, it's not an intelligence check or whatever. It happens. You have the DM screen, and you have so much that you're doing. Your mind goes everywhere. So one guy's asking you a question, and you're looking at your stats and getting ready for your next scenario, and then there's another player is asking a question. Boom, 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 boom. You have to work. You're the world. And topic one, we were talking about loot. And trust me, there's a connection. I'm getting there. The big connection is this, and I'm pretty good at doing that, is why are people upset where in the players that they're like, oh, player number 6 is stealing our loot. Why is he upset? And I'm getting to that. It's because he's bored or she's bored. They're bored. Something's going on. So the DM in this forum was saying, well, how do I deal with this player where he has to stop the press and think about what he's doing? Because when a player reacts like that, when they just steal shit and they're like, I want to steal loot for myself. There's something going on. Maybe he wants to be an like Indiana Jones. He grabs that piece. A trap sets off. He looks to his right or behind him. A huge boulder comes at him. He runs. Maybe he wants action, but he hasn't gotten it because the DM is doing this mystery, which the other players like, but this guy doesn't like it. Those are the things you have to think about. And as much as DMs can say, well, on forums, how do I do this? I need help with that. Maybe reflecting, maybe focus. And I would tell them this, move away from the table, talk to your players. But if you don't get that resolved and come back to the table and it happens again, that means that player is not the problem. I think, and you could try this, that maybe put more action into your games, maybe put more mystery, more intrigue, whatever it is that's missing, that component that's missing, try it out. There's nothing wrong with that. And then if you try it out and if he's still acting up, then it's time to stop the press and tell him, I don't think it's going to work out, sir. That's it. That's all you do. Be as respectful as can be and go from there. Loot is very important. Like I said in the beginning, it is very important. It connects Magic. It connects the game. It really brings feisty people out. And that's it. Have a character, Micah Henry says, have a character spot the rogue pocketing the treasure. Have them spot all the time. The rogue is trying to take everyone else's share. Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah. Yeah, that's that's a good point. Spotting the rogue is the main thing. That's very cool. Well, what if it wasn't a rogue? What if it was a fighter? The forum I read on social media, he didn't say, he wasn't specific, but he was very upset. The DM was very upset that the player was acting up. But that spotting that character, that's a way, and that's a great point. Thank you for a comment. Thank you for your comment. That's way for the group to really get that energy up. Oh, we spotted you. That's a great point, because if you have an issue in your campaign or in your story with players acting up, there's got to be a reason. So find out what that is. Move away from the table, talk to everyone, find out what the issue is, resolve it, come back to the gaming table, play the game, and have fun. That's the thing, having fun. Topic number 2, magic items. How do you, and Micah, tell me exactly how do you deal with magic? How do you deal with magic items? Oh, okay. What's up, Leroy? Thank you for showing up. How do you guys deal with magic items? So this is what I got. I'm kind of crazy with this. So my buddy said, okay, give me this link, and it has all the magic items. And so we gathered all the magic items in D&D. So what I did is I printed everything out. Okay, that's cool. The modules there don't typically have the magic. Okay. So I made a list. If you can see this, table A through I, and the levels of each table, and I printed everything out. I just, I have it digitally, but I also have it printed out. So when it doesn't work digitally, I look at this and they roll a percentile, and they get randomly, my guys, they're level 6. So they're working really hard to get to level 7. So you look at the table, and it works for me. Anyone can have their own table. It's great to have different tables. It's great to have an online table, or print a printout, whatever works for you. I like printing out characters, and I got D&D Beyond. I've got them on my computer minimized. I do both just in case something happens with the computer, or there's a lock. I have sheets. Oh, that's awesome. That is awesome. That is awesome. That's very cool. I like that. See, everybody, Micah suggested, or what he does as DM, he has contacts in a city that are successful in developing those relationships with the NPC. They can request specific magic items from those NPCs, which is great, because if you have an NPC in your game that's very cool, that people like to go back to, there you go. So that's a great way to hand out magic items. And magic items is cool. But I will tell you one thing. Magic items can also be a pain in the butt. Here's where I have to tell you, because if you roll right on that random table and you roll good, or not me, but if they roll, I give them the option. Okay, cool. That actually works cool. So you can tell your player that, hey, that magic item is not available. That's awesome. That's great. And that makes sense, because if they want a certain item they're looking for, and you're like, oh, the item's not available, that's great. That's fun. Rolling random, and Micah has a great point, and you can do it that way. Everybody has their own way of doing magic items and loot. But magic items, let's say you have the vicious sword, right? and you have this sword that it's a beautiful weapon. It does what it does, and you have that weapon in a party, in a group of creatures that you've killed, or that weapon was in a weapon shop or whatnot, and you saw it there, and you know what it was. You know what it is. Sorry, you know exactly what to do with it. So you want to buy it. You found it. You rolled. Oh, this is what it has here in the shop. They rolled. Oh, I got a high roll. You got a really cool weapon. What is bad about that sometimes is if they roll too good. And I'm not saying, you know what, they want to get a really awesome item. That is great. But let's say that they rolled. Let's see, they roll their level between level 16 and 18, right? And let's say they rolled and they got something. Reincarnation dust. I mean, you would think that's not a big deal, right? But reincarnation is reincarnation. So if somebody dies, it can help a party out. There's nothing wrong with that. Don't get me wrong, but that would be a good story arc. If someone in the party died, and let's say it was in your campaign 5 episodes, 10 episodes back, someone died, and then later on they found this awesome magic item, happens to be reincarnation dust. Just sprinkle of dust. They find out what it is, what it does, and they go back where that player died. Let's see if it works. You know how players, you know how people get. They're like, oh, I want to see if this works. See, a lot of times we've played this game so much that all these items, we remember what they are, and you kind of have a sense of there's no gusto. You know what I'm saying? Oh, I know what it is. It's that sword. I don't need that sword. That's why I like doing homebrew stuff. I really do, because it's a lot of fun, and it really opens up a lot of energy in the game. And if you look at these items and the stuff that you can get, it's amazing. White Dragon Mask for levels 19 and 20. Magic item E, table E. So this is a lot of good stuff that you can get. The Hat of Disguise. That's pretty cool. You know, if you're not good at disguising yourself, you got a Hat of Disguise, right? Pearl Power. Amulet of Proof. There's a lot of stuff that's very dangerous. Psy Crystal. Yeah. Wand of Web. Weapon of Warning. Yeah, Deck of Illusions. That's really cool. So there's a lot of stuff that's very cool that you can get for magic items and magical weapons too. You know? Legendary, rare. So if you are upon a legendary weapon, how do you put that in your campaign? You know, a knight died in this battle, and that knight died and the sword's in the ground. You see the knight hunched over, bloodied, and you see the sword. Well, you have the Avenger, the Holy Avenger. How did low-level characters find that beautiful weapon? Can it be done? It all depends on the DM and how you want your story to go. But you got to remember, you have to have some form of balance too. And I understand that folks are going to be like, well, Henry, I want an epic campaign. Got to have balance. So how much is too much? You know, because if you go into all these wonderful books that you read, DM's Guide and how to do this and how to do that, and you do balance, but then when you get to the higher levels, the balance starts to because you're now level 10, level 11, level 12, and as you get higher and higher after level 8, those weapons that are very powerful are insignificant because of what you can do. A wizard at level 17, a wizard, a fighter. If you're playing an Echo Knight a fighter at high levels, magical items don't really matter anymore. They're cool. They're very cool. And I love using them. But when you're at higher levels, the power level of those classes are extreme. And how do you deal with them? How do you do it? That's why in your session 0, you talk to your players and you say, hey guys, this is going to be an epic campaign. It's going to be one where high adventure, a lot of sword play, a lot of combat, a lot of mystical. You got to come up, pitch your story to the players. Like the guys in the campaign, they're dungeon crawling. They wanted a dungeon crawl game. In season 2 for Playerole, our campaign, they're in a dungeon, and they're still in the dungeon because they wanted dungeon crawl. And last season we did milestone, and we're doing experience. Now experience is a lot harder than milestone. Milestone is exactly the definition of milestone. When they reach a certain checkpoint in your story, they go up a level. Each DM has their own way of doing it. There is, going to DM's guide, I'll tell you exactly how to do it. But it's okay to do it the way you want to do it, as long as the players know that you're doing it that way. We're doing checkpoints, guys. Okay, every 3 episodes you're going to go up a level. Every 4 episodes, give or take, depending on the story and role playing, you're good. All right, good to go. As long as everybody is on the same page, because that's important. If you have a certain aspect of what you're going to do, how are you going to do this? How are you going to run the game to make it better for your players? Those are the things I always think about. Oh man, was that story good? Those magical items, was it enough? Did I give them enough? Maybe I should give them more. It all depends on the story. Like I created for the game coming tomorrow at 8 p.m. Central. I created a couple NPCs, more than one, and one of them has items on them. They're not going to know that, and I'm not going to tell you which one. But they have certain items on them, and they're not going to know what it is until they kill the character or they see it. But it's not, without getting into spoilers, it's not going to be one where it's going to be it's not going to be difficult to figure out what that NPC has, as long as they're within range of sight. So they're going to see, but it's going to be fun. Hopefully. I always hope, because no matter what you do as a DM, you want to create something that's fun for the players, but not to the point where it's stressful. It's okay to have a little bit of stress, but sometimes it may not be. It may not be a good idea. So magical items can be a pain in the ass too. And what I mean by that is, like I described, the paladin or the knight that has a holy avenger died on this tree or by this tree, and you see a whole bunch of orcs around him, bloodied and dead. And I ask the party, what are you doing? The party does a perception roll. They see this beautiful sword. They're low level, but they don't know what that sword is because they don't know. They don't know. They haven't been adventuring for a long time. So they don't know. But then they realize it's a massive sword. So as they level up, then they realize, man, that sword's cool. The fighter in the campaign is like, that's a cool sword. Then he realizes it's a badass sword. Holy Avenger, man. But do you want that in your campaign early on? You don't want to do that because it is very powerful, and it's like playing a video game and going to a higher level area, in video games, old school, where you go to a higher level area and you get your ass kicked. It's the same thing. You don't want to do that. You want them to progress and then find those items eventually. But magical items are very cool, but they can be cumbersome too. Just, it depends on how you put it out there, because you have to have a certain magical item, certain amount of gold, everything has to be balanced accordingly to the story, how many battles you have, and so forth, because that determines how much you'll get gold, currency-wise, and magic. It all depends on how you want to run it. You can look at the books all the time and say, oh yeah, it tells me you have to rest a certain amount. But what if the players are being chased? What if they're being chased by a bunch of hunters, let's say? A pack of wolves. They're being chased. They don't have time to rest. I ask you, what are you doing? We're going to look for a cave. There's no cave. There's just forest, a dense forest. Okay, we're running. And they run, and they find a cave. But as they find the cave, they find more problems. They decide not to rest. Is it the DM's fault? Maybe. You have a scene where all the players are together and they don't rest. So you have 1 point of exhaustion because they're not resting. Well, you never gave us a chance to rest. Well, what are you doing? You're in a cave. All you got to do is rest. Plop your ass down and sleep. You got 6 players, right? 6 people in your party. 3 go to sleep and the other 3 take watch. Or maybe 1 or 2 take watch. However you want to do it. That's the way I have always done it. I think, let me check my levels. For some reason, I want to make sure my stream is coming out good. All right, no error. Okay, so it all depends on how you do things as DM, how you run things. You can run them good, communicate with your players, tell them, hey, this is my pitch to you, this is my story. 3, if you have loot and magical items, distribute them accurately. Sprinkle here and there. Like if you design this dungeon, put the gold, the loot in different areas. Or do it randomly. Roll randomly. Boom. Lizard folk, whatever creature you have on there, dragon, whatever. There's loot here and there. Magical item. The dragon is guarding a beautiful looking sword with an ivory hilt, and there's something weird at the top of the hilt as well. Something swirling black. Inky blackness is coming from the hilt as well. So now you have this cool looking beautiful weapon stuck in the ground. You defeated the dragon. Man, you guys are all hurt. And then you see this sword, but you see this inky blackness coming out of the sword, the hilt of the sword. But it's beautiful, but except that inky blackness just dripping down. What are you doing? Oh, I want to go towards the sword. I want to inspect it. Okay, nothing. You don't make your rolls. It's not high enough, so you grab it. Okay. The party moves along. You take the inky blackness out. You clean your sword, and you realize your hand still has this inky blackness that starts to literally seep into your skin. So you're like, what the hell? Make a Constitution roll. You're poisoned. What? How? You didn't make your checks, your investigation check. You didn't make whatever. You didn't make your checks. So now you move forward with that. The player has a cool weapon, a little bit of dice of something. So that intensifies the scenario. The players are not bored. The players are like, oh, well, I got a cool weapon, but there's a price. There's a price to pay. I like consequences. I like running games with consequences. Where, you got the gold, you got the silver, you got the cool ass weapon, but do you really have to take all of it? If you have a chest full of gold, let's take it all. Do you really? That's up to you if you want to. But there's consequences. Oh yeah, there was a trap. As soon as you took everything, you pulled that chest. You wanted to pull that chest out. Pull it, drag it, whatever you want to do. Take that chest out of there. And then all of a sudden, you lift it and a trap is set up. Gas consumes the room. What are you doing? Constitution save. Shit. I failed the roll. What are you going to do? So now you're in a pickle. You got the gold. You got the loot you wanted. Well, how are you going to get out of the room? So you got to make a choice. Leave the gold or take some and leave. Take a handful and leave. I took a handful, put it in my bag of holding or my backpack, and I took off. Let's get out of here. How many turns do you have? Oh, I got 3 turns. Or 2 turns. I have an action and a bonus action. Okay, cool. 2, sorry. So what are you going to do? Are you going to take that, your action? I'm going to take the gold, whatever, put it in my pouch. My bonus action will take off. All right. You take off. You make a constitution check. As you're going, you made the roll. You're coughing heavily, but you made it out. Out of 6 players, 3 of them pass out because of the dense smoke that came in, or some form of gas that entered the room. One of the guys saw in the room, there's holes in the room about, 10 centimeters in length, for example. They noticed there's holes in the room, 30 of them on each side of the walls. They look like, okay, we got to get out of here. They notice that gas is coming out. So majority of the group makes it out except for 3. Or half the room makes it out except for 3. But the other 3, again, they're part of the party, so they help each other out. So they dragged their compatriots, their comrades out. They grab their friends out. They're like, hey, I'm going to grab my friend, my fellow party member out. Even the rogue that took the loot earlier from us, we're going to drag his ass back out of this room. So you drag him out. So now the rogue is going to be happy. Going to be like, oh man, thanks for saving me. So now he's like, hey man, remember I took that from you earlier? Here you go. So things like that. Not all the time is going to work in the favor of the DM or the favor of the players, or sometimes it's not going to work. Because if you look at how you're running the game, and like, to me, I run off of energy. So if you're role playing and you're giving me energy, I'm gonna, like I said earlier, I'm gonna bring that energy to you. So as a DM, if you have players that are going off, find out why. And going back to magical items, if you don't have them distributed correctly, whatever, if you don't have them in your game correctly, they're going to be overly powerful. OP. They are. Hey, I've learned. I've done that before. So not all of us are perfect, but let me tell you that if you just look at the DM's guide, man, there's a lot of stuff in there that's pretty that's really good. And it gives you hints. You don't have to read the whole thing. Just gives you how do you how do you deal with magical items? How do you deal with loot? How do you do with all that stuff? It's really cool because it does help you out. And you don't have to take everything to heart. Just say, okay, I want to use a little bit of that and there. A little bit of this, a little bit of this and that. Sprinkle salt and pepper on your hot dog or fries. And you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Because once you do that, the players will have fun. A Holy Avenger should not be in a campaign of level 1 through 3. No. No. I mean, it's cool for vision, for, oh man, that's a cool looking sword. But no, it shouldn't be like that at all. So, how do you do magic items? Like Micah said earlier, he has NPCs that distributes all these weapons or items to the players. They know they have contacts. Oh, contact number 2 is in the south side of the city. He might own a magic shop. And he says, what are you looking for? I'm looking for a kick-ass sword. All right, well, I don't have that kick-ass sword. See, I like making homebrew weapons. So the player looks at that contact and says, hey, look, what about that boomerang? The boomerang looks kind of cool. It's silver. It has leather grip on it in the middle. What does it do? Well, the boomerang comes right back at you. Well, the shopkeeper says, hey, that boomerang not only comes back to you, but it's powerful. The blades are powerful. What do you mean? It cuts anything. It goes right through anything. Really? Give it a try. So you test the boomerang, and it goes right through a wall. Just crushed splinters of wood, just right through it. Deadly as hell. Oh, that's awesome. You retrieve it. I mean, it's stuff like that. Yeah, granted, it's overly powerful. I'm just giving you an example. Or just like Micah said, you could say, hey, that item's not there you're looking for. You're looking for that kick-ass boomerang. Well, it's not there. That whip that has shards on it, have thorns on the whip from the very tip to the very end. No, we don't have that. Oh, what do you have? I have a pistol. Oh, do you have a gunslinger in your group? Oh, yeah, I do. He's coming. He'll be interested. So there you go. I mean, so those are the things you have to really think about. And magic items can be good and they can really make or break a party, believe it or not. Because if you start handing off all this stuff, you're going to have a lot of issues. And in your game, people are going to be overly powerful, and they're going to one-shot your creatures. It's happened to me. It's happened to me before. I love epic games, and I love writing epic stories. But if the heroes are OP, they're going to run over your creature. Yep. And sometimes, sometimes you have no choice. Sometimes you're just going to have to deal with that aspect. And if you're running the game and players know that they're going to one-shot your creatures, then it happens. Let it happen. And as DM, that's going to happen. Oh, yeah, I'm a DM. It doesn't happen to me. Yeah, well, it does happen because either they have a really good roll, a really good night rolling, or they're very good at And this is where player knowledge comes in, where we've been playing this game too long. We're going up against a basilisk. You know, a basilisk, you can't look at it. You can't stare at it because he's going to turn you to stone. Or Medusa. Everybody knows Medusa. Everybody knows a basilisk. Everybody knows a red dragon, black dragon. We know that. So we're like, okay, black dragon acid, red dragon fire, blue dragon lightning. So you know that. You know that in D&D. So you mix it up a little bit. Change things. Make things better. Don't make it so humdrum to where it's the same thing all over again. Not all the times. It's okay to use hags, dragons, or different things from the monster manual. It's great. Homebrew creatures are a bitch. I'm telling you. It's great to have your own creature. It is great to make them. And if you want to make the creature stat-wise for D&D 5e, 2014 version, yeah, you could make them. But it's crunchy. And then after that, the spells that you're going to have on the creature, all that type of thing. All those things make that creature up. So now, here I am talking about loot, and I'm going into homebrew. But it's okay. It's all part of it. So now you have this wonderful creature that you made, and you go up against the party, and they don't know it. It's refreshing, because the party is not going to be, we're going up against a basilisk. Okay, guys, don't look at it. It's player knowledge. How could you role play well if the party knows what type of creature you're throwing in? Think about it. If you're going up against, let's say, let's do something simple. Let's do a goblin. Everybody knows goblins. They're weak, whatever. But are they? One or two goblins, yes. But when you get 15 or 20 goblins, it's a whole new ballgame, isn't it? And if you're doing MCDMs, a minion, and stuff like that, and how they do it, you have a band of, 5 goblins or whatever. They could be minions, whatnot, and you have overkill, all that stuff. That makes things fun and entertaining in combat, in a game, because it really speeds up combat and it makes it fun. It's not the same humdrum thing. Oh, wait, when you kill the creature, there's not going to be a Holy Avenger. There's going to be a couple daggers, copper pieces, torn clothes, maybe, weapons from loot that they took from another party, because they're goblins. That's what they do. So that's what you're going to have. And as you do that in the campaign, and as the player characters grow and they get their levels and they start moving, and like that list I made, believe it or not, it's crazy, but it's fun, because it deals with, like, my guys are level 6 through 10, table B. You know exactly where they should be at. But there's a lot of stuff in that list that's powerful. So you, as a DM, every game, you don't be like, magic item. Oh, magic item. No. Just know that if you do that, the player characters will become OP very early on. I love epic shit. Don't get me wrong. I love player characters be heroes, because that's what it's about. You being a hero and growing. So now you have all these magical items, and at level 10, you have like the Bag of Holding, Holy Avenger. I'm bringing up the Holy Avenger just as an example. So you have all these magic items. You have these rings of invisibility. You have a cloak of elven kind. You have a bunch of different stuff, man. It doesn't make it fun anymore. That's what I'm saying. It doesn't make it fun. It makes it to the point where you get bored, where it's like, you know what, I want to sell this, maybe get some money, maybe get a keep somewhere. No. But what about this scenario? What about the party, helps out of town, and the governor of that town, because of how they help the town, the governor says, hey, look, I want to give you guys a prize. And then if he has weapons that might be good, plus one broadsword, stuff like that. Maybe some gold, 100 gold pieces. He says, in my town, I can only afford a certain amount. So I'm going to give you 100. You could work with that. And then this sword. So stuff like that. It's not being cheap. You're not gypping your party. You're doing what you can. Now, same scenario, bigger town. It's a massive city. You have knights. You have you have guards, assassins, just whatever. You have a very full city. You've got magic shops, 10,000 people or more. It is part of your world. It is the major city that people go to. You do something for that city, and in return, the king and queen will give you something. Maybe they'll give you a real nice rare weapon, gold and silver, and on top of that, something special for each one of the characters. One item, magic or whatnot. Those are the things that that make the game good. Because if you do that, it gives the player characters, they appreciate that. They're like, oh man, that's awesome. We succeeded. But either way, that's all I got for you tonight. And I hope you enjoyed this episode of DM Talk. The season for Creatures of the Realm, we're going up to 50 episodes. Season 1 will be over. And then we're going to continue DM Talk for 50 for season 1. And we're halfway there. And, thank you for watching. Again, subscribe, like, let people know about Playerole. Tomorrow is, I'm going to be streaming with the guys. And End the Line returns, part 3. 3-part side story. And then when that story arc finishes, we're going to go back to the main campaign with every player, and that's going to come in mid-December. So either way, thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys tomorrow at 8 p.m. Central with some of the guys in End of the Line Returns Part 3. I'll see you guys. Thank you very much for your comments.